Welcome to NTD News. I'm Kevin Hogan. Here are today's top stories. Migrants make the dangerous trek from Central America to the United States. This while President Biden tells them not to come. But what's happening to some of them when they arrive? A battle is brewing in the Senate. Some Democrat leaders want to ditch the Senate filibuster to pass President Biden's agenda despite Republicans' objections. Moderate Democrats could decide the rule's fate. Should New York's Governor Cuomo resign over sexual harassment allegations? President Biden gives his view as more Democrats call on the governor to step down. A shooting spree leaves 8 people dead on Tuesday. The attacks occurred at several massage parlors around Atlanta. Police say they have a suspect in custody. Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn endorses a candidate in Oklahoma for the U.S. Senate. We talked to General Flynn about his endorsement. All that and more on NTD News. President Biden told migrants from Central America not to come to the United States and cross over the border illegally. And we hear what a Guatemalan migrant who's making the trek has to say to his fellow countrymen.
DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said this year the U.S. is on pace to encounter more illegal immigrants crossing the border than any year in the past 2 decades. In light of this, Biden told Central American migrants in an interview with ABC News on Tuesday, "I can say quite clearly, don't come over." The president's comment comes amid a surge of illegal crossings. One man from Guatemala City gives advice to others thinking about making the journey.
Good day, my name is Ornelio. I'm from the capital of Guatemala. I tell all my compatriots in Guatemala and the United States to think about it before taking this little trip. It's difficult. Arriving in a foreign land is different. Think about it, really think well about it because you suffer on this path. But as the saying goes, you also learn. Greetings to the people of Guatemala.
Biden told ABC that migrants should remain in their town, city, or community instead of trekking to the United States and crossing the border illegally. As president, Biden has undone over 12 immigration policies that President Trump had put in place to curb illegal immigration. Trump criticized Biden on Fox News. He said, "My policies were working better than they've ever seen on the southern border. The wall is almost complete. They could have finished it in a month and it would be just magnificent. They should finish it, but they're destroying our country. People are coming in by the hundreds of thousands." Trump's comments come as Biden faces increasing pressure to respond to a flood of illegal immigrants pouring across the border, and while thousands of unaccompanied minors are detained in shelters and overflow facilities. And all this while the House, controlled by Democrats, is set to vote Thursday on 2 immigration bills that would give citizenship to millions living illegally in the U.S. The bills would allow farm workers and young immigrants known as Dreamers to become citizens. And on Tuesday, Border Protection agents deported dozens of Central American migrants to Mexico. Families with small children walked from El Paso, Texas, to Ciudad Juarez on the International Bridge. A migrant mother expresses her anger at being rejected by authorities.
They didn't listen to us and didn't even ask us. We were only seen to by doctors. That's it. We were seen to by doctors and then deported. They didn't care about anything.
Mexico's Chihuahua state government set up a migrant attention center where deportees received food and medical attention.
And sadly, 8 illegal immigrants have been pronounced dead in Texas. That's after the truck they were driving in crashed head-on with another truck about 30 miles north of Del Rio. They were evading Texas public safety troopers when it happened. The driver and a child in the other truck, as well as 1 illegal immigrant from the truck, were reportedly taken to a hospital in San Antonio and are in stable condition. Senate Democrats are threatening to remove the filibuster. That would allow them to pass legislation without a single Republican vote. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says Democrats are determined to pass their agenda.
As for the issue, we Democrats, all of us, believe we need big, bold change.
Schumer says he wants to work with Republicans. He says they need to support, quote, the kinds of change that America needs. If not, he is threatening to get rid of the filibuster.
As I've said before, we hope our Republican colleagues will work with us to produce that change. We will try to get them to work with us. But if not, we will put our heads together and figure out how to go, and everything is on the table.
The filibuster allows a minority of senators to block legislation. It takes 60 votes to override. Without it, Democrats could pass any legislation without a single Republican vote. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell calls the filibuster the essence of the Senate. He says the Senate is the only legislative body that gives the minority a say on legislation. He says the Democrats' plan could backfire on them if Republicans regain power.
We'd strengthen America with all kinds of conservative policies with zero input from the other side.
Moderate Democrats in the Senate may be the only safeguard for the filibuster. Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema say they support keeping the filibuster. Manchin says he's been in the minority, so he understands the importance of the minority having a voice. McConnell warned if the Democrats remove the filibuster, the Senate would almost stop functioning, implying that Republicans would be forced to grind the Senate to a halt as a last resort to push back against the Democrats' total control. President Biden says Governor Cuomo should resign if the sexual harassment allegations are confirmed.
President Biden says U.S. Governor Andrew Cuomo should resign if the sexual misconduct allegations are true. He made the comment Tuesday on ABC News.
If the investigation confirms the claims of the women, should he resign?
Yes, I think he probably end up being prosecuted, too.
Last week, New York's Attorney General named a team of outside lawyers to lead the investigation. One of Cuomo's accusers, former aide Charlotte Bennett, met with investigators virtually Monday for over 4 hours. Her lawyer said Bennett provided over 120 pages of records.
She did a very good job of detailing this, which is exactly why the governor has not denied the allegations. He stuck with the allegations. He said, "I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable," but he can't deny it.
She alleges as more women come forward, they're seeing certain patterns of misconduct from the governor.
There are clear abuses of power here, and there are clear patterns of how his inner staff silenced women when they came forward, removed women when they came forward with allegations, and just covered up for the governor.
Cuomo has denied any misconduct and vowed to cooperate with the investigation. Many of Cuomo's fellow Democrats are demanding his resignation, including both of New York's U.S. senators.
Because of these allegations, the governor has lost the confidence of his governing partners and of many New Yorkers, and he should step down.
And more than 130 state lawmakers have said Cuomo should resign, including the Senate Majority Leader.
I think the governor should resign because, again, there's just so many allegations and so many different, whether it's the nursing home data or sexual harassment.
The state assembly has opened up an impeachment investigation. Cuomo appeared at a vaccination site Monday and talked about the importance of getting a new state budget done by an April 1st deadline. That normally involves negotiations, but this year he'll be negotiating with people who are demanding that he step down. The governor has said, however, that he won't resign.
A shooting spree tragically took 8 lives last night. The attacker targeted 3 different massage parlors around the Atlanta area in Georgia. Police say they have a suspect in custody. Here are the details.
A series of shootings took place over nearly an hour Tuesday evening. Each occurred at an Atlanta area massage parlor. Police launched a manhunt and took suspect Robert Aaron Long into custody, reportedly without incident. They say he was driving the same car reported by security cameras at the murder scenes. Police explained that an officer used a maneuver to spin the suspect's vehicle out of control before taking him in. The shooting started at Young's Asian Massage Parlor, about 30 miles north of Atlanta. The killer fatally shot 4 people there. Another was taken to the hospital. Police responded about an hour later to the Buckhead neighborhood in Atlanta, home to many tattoo parlors and strip clubs. Police found 3 more victims at the nearby Gold Spa, while still another victim was discovered across the street at aromatherapy spa. The FBI says it's helping the investigation, and Georgia Governor Brian Kemp says his family is praying for the victims. Some media outlets are already reporting the attacks might be racially motivated. The majority of the victims are Asian women. A white man and a white woman was also killed, and a Hispanic man was shot and taken to the hospital. The shooter's motive is not yet confirmed.
A Kentucky state Senate bill to reform election laws sets a rare example of bipartisan agreement. The bill seeks to stamp out election fraud.
So no more portal opening in August, sir. And the portal will close 14 days prior to an election, and all votes must be counted by election day. So no more 3 days of vote counting after the election.
Republican and Democratic politicians in Kentucky are in agreement on the bill. It's in sharp contrast to the bitter partisan battles over election laws in other states. The bill passed the state Senate 33-3. The Kentucky measure would give voters 3 days of no-excuse early in-person voting before Election Day. It backs off from the pandemic-related accommodations made last year that allowed widespread mail-in balloting. The measure now heads back to the House for a potential final vote. In a sharp reversal from December, several federal agencies now say there was no evidence of foreign interference in the 2020 election. NTD's Christina Kim has the story.
A joint statement from the DOJ and DHS says the U.S. worked in unprecedented ways to combat foreign interference in the 2020 election. They say no foreign government manipulated the election. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, or ODNI, released similar conclusions. This is in direct opposition to an earlier report from then Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe. He said that China, Iran, and Russia did interfere in the 2020 election. The ODNI's new report makes 5 assessments. First, it says no foreign actor tried to alter technical aspects of the voting process. This includes things like vote tabulation or voter registration. Second, it said Russia tried to undercut President Biden's candidacy, support former President Trump, and undermine public confidence in the election system. Third, it says Iran took steps to undermine Trump's campaign and sow division in the U.S. But the DOJ says these claims are either inflated or fake. Fourth, it says some other foreign actors, including Cuba and Venezuela, took small steps to try to influence the election because of financial motivations. But the report did not list evidence to back this up. For example, the report says, quote, Cuban intelligence probably conducted some low-level activities to undermine Trump's re-election. Fifth, the report says China considered interfering in the U.S. election, but didn't actually take steps to influence the outcome. The report says they're confident this happened because they believe China wants stability with the U.S. and didn't think either candidate was worth the risk of being caught. But in December, Ratcliffe, who led 17 intelligence agencies at the time, said there was interference from China. He said alternative viewpoints on China's election influence were not tolerated or encouraged in the highly politicized climate. Christina Kim, NTD News.
More states are standing up against Google. 5 attorneys general are joining Texas's antitrust lawsuit against the tech giant.
Our coalition is going after Google for its anti-competitive practices that eliminate their competition for online display advertising. We believe the free market, not a monopolist, should decide how internet ads are offered. We're also suing Google for its unlawful secret price-fixing agreement with Facebook.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton led the effort and filed the lawsuit in December last year. He filed an amended complaint on Monday alleging Google of deceptive practices. Attorneys general from Florida, Nevada, Alaska, Montana, and Puerto Rico are now joining a coalition of 10 states in a lawsuit against Google. That brings the total number of plaintiffs to 14 states and 1 territory.
New allegations have surfaced in this case. Despite promising users that text messages and WhatsApp are end-to-end encrypted, Google holds the encryption keys to billions of WhatsApp texts backed up on the Google Drive. Right now, this company collects around 7,000 data points on each user.
Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Utah are also part of this coalition. Paxton says if they win this lawsuit, Google will be made to return digital footprints to its users and pay hundreds of billions in financial penalties. Texas is coming for you, Google, Paxton says. Reporting by Allison Lee, NTD News.
A high-profile conservative voice has come out to endorse a Senate candidate for the 2022 primaries. General Flynn is endorsing the Republican challenger, not the incumbent. NTD's Steve Lance brings us more.
Former National Security Advisor to Trump, General Michael Flynn, is endorsing Pastor Jackson Lahmeyer of Oklahoma for the United States Senate. Lahmeyer is challenging incumbent Senator James Lankford in the Republican primary. Lahmeyer believes Oklahomans are looking for strong and principled leaders.
We need strong men, strong women who are going to be willing to fight, who have a backbone and will never bow down to the cancel culture phenomenon that is trying to erase and eradicate who we are as a people.
Getting the endorsement of General Flynn this early in the contest could be a big boost for Lahmeyer.
We need fearless warriors in Washington, D.C. right now.
Lohmeyer presents himself as a constitutionalist who will protect the things that matter most to American families.
We need strong men, strong women who are going to be willing to stand up, fight, and defend the United States Constitution, because it's the United States Constitution that defends our faith, our families, and our freedoms.
We sat down with General Flynn after the announcement to ask him why he's endorsing Jackson Lohmeyer.
He's a warrior. He's a fighter. He's a man of faith. He's committed to conservative values.
Many Americans are feeling hopeless after the presidential election, but General Flynn is firm about the power of getting involved in the process.
It's vital. It's like the blood that's flowing through my body. That's how vital it is for people in this country, for patriots in this country. If you feel a sense of patriotism, for you to get involved in your communities, local, state, and then federal, as we're here to talk about, endorsing Jackson Lohmeyer to run for U.S. Senate.
General Flynn is expected to endorse other candidates in different races throughout the country. The Senate Republican primary here in Oklahoma will be one to keep your eyes on. Steve Lance, NTD News, Tulsa.
And coming up, the Massachusetts Transportation Authority works to move a train off the tracks after it derailed. 100 passengers on board, but no one was injured. Two people died in a fireworks explosion in California. The fireworks shot into nearby homes, sending a California community into panic. One young woman caught on fire at a nearby home, but is okay. Others survived with some injuries. The explosion started on Tuesday around 12:30 in the afternoon. ABC 11 reports that the fireworks shattered glass and set fires in Ontario, California, around 40 miles east of Los Angeles. The home with the fireworks went up in smoke. Authorities evacuated part of the neighborhood and set up a temporary shelter. Around 50 firefighters put out the fires started by the explosion, and officials brought a bomb squad to the scene over concern of unexploded fireworks. Police are investigating the people housing the illegal fireworks. They could face felony charges. And there are major delays for commuters in Massachusetts after a train went off the tracks. NTD's Don Tran has the details.
The MBTA, or Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, has been at it for hours to get one of its trains off the railroad. At about 11:40 a.m. yesterday, this Orange Line train derailed when it moved slowly northbound on a southbound track to avoid a maintenance site. Around 100 passengers were on board at the time. None of them were injured, but the derailment caused major service disruptions. The MBTA is now using shuttle buses, which will replace the Orange Line train for 3 weeks. During that time, the agency will look into what caused the derailment and replace parts of the decades-old railroad that were damaged. They also said all of the new cars on the Orange Line and Red Line will be held off the tracks while they analyze their performance. Don Tran, NTD News.
Tiger Woods returns home, marking the next step in his recovery. It follows his being hospitalized after a major car accident. The legendary golfer posted this message to Twitter Tuesday, saying that he's still recovering and is so grateful for the support and encouragement that he has received over the past few weeks. He also thanked the medical staff at Harbor UCLA Medical Center and Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Last month, the 45-year-old's SUV crossed a median in the Los Angeles area, hit a curb and a tree before landing on its side. Woods suffered severe injuries, especially to his leg, which was repaired with a rod, screws, and pins. Authorities believe the crash was, quote, purely an accident. After a year of shutdowns, New York City is slowly coming back to life again. NTD's Arian Pastar takes a look at one of the hardest years ever for the restaurant industry and how one spot survived it.
Exactly 1 year ago, restaurants in New York City had to close their doors because of government shutdowns. After some time, they were allowed to serve people again, but only in outdoor structures like this one. And even with heaters, the winters in New York City are too cold to eat outside comfortably. So the industry suffered a lot. We asked the owners how they made it through this year. Even if an outdoor structure is well heated, that doesn't guarantee that guests can come. As soon as an inch of snow is forecast, outdoor structures have to be closed.
When the snow hits, it's really hard because the DOT says that we have to, stop service all of a sudden, and then you're thinking, what do you do with the staff?
But she says that with the way their auto structure was set up, they managed to make it through the winter.
We could set up so that we had individual booths, and therefore I think customers came by because they saw how safe we were doing everything.
She added that less tables fit in the structure because of the individual booths, but she said that strategy paid off in the long run because guests felt safe. At the end of this week, New York City and New Jersey will raise indoor dining capacity to 50%. The two places try to have the same capacity, so New Yorkers don't just go to New Jersey to dine in. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Just ahead, China's traffic police raked in billions of dollars last year. One police officer explains why. And a top U.S. diplomat is reaffirming America's alliance with Japan. This as countries in the Indo-Pacific region face a growing threat from China. Find out more when we return.
The glory of piano masterpieces from the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic periods. New Tang Dynasty Television invites you to join the 2021 NTD International Piano Competition. Together, we preserve and revitalize the art of authentic classical piano music. October 2021 in New York City. Register now at piano.ntdtv.com.
Traffic fines across China totaled nearly $50 billion in 2020. So how exactly did Chinese traffic police collect that astronomical amount of money from drivers? NTD's Tiffany Meyer gives us the answer.
Being a traffic police officer can be profitable in China. A CCP official and police officer explain why. Han De-yun is a lawyer from the southwestern city of Chongqing. He is also a member of the CCP's legislature. Earlier this month, he revealed that local traffic control departments have been making good profits with tricks and unreasonable rules. He brought it up during the CCP's annual Two Sessions meeting. According to official statistics, traffic fines across China totaled nearly $50 billion in 2020. That means the average fine per car is as high as nearly $200. According to Han, in certain areas, the number of violations in one street alone can reach over 40,000 a month. That's an average of 1,400 violations per day. They happen in heavily surveilled areas, such as some streets in Beijing. Han says he has discovered some unreasonable traffic rules. For example, some local authorities set up relatively low speed limits on good roads on purpose. This way, many drivers will be speeding without realizing. Some local authorities also set up different speed limits with short distances in between. This way, drivers have no buffer zone to slow down. Chinese police officer Mr. Li tells NTD that traffic fines are linked to the local economy and fiscal revenue.
30% of the fines go to the treasury of the local government, 70% to the traffic department, so they all profit from it. That is why traffic surveillance cameras are everywhere, and so many cars have been fined.
Lee says fines have become a magic weapon that the traffic control department uses to collect money. This problem has existed for many years. Years ago, a former traffic police revealed on Chinese social media that his brigade had an annual fine quota. On average, each traffic police officer must issue fines of about $300 a day to fulfill the quota. A bonus will be given to those who overfulfill the quota.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is sending a tough message to the Chinese regime. This as he's on his way to boost alliances in Asia to counter Beijing's growing threat. NTD's Juliet Song has the latest.
America's top diplomat is warning China to calm its aggression in the Indo-Pacific region.
We will push back if necessary when China uses coercion or aggression to get its way.
His remarks come during his first trip abroad as Secretary of State. The purpose of the trip is to boost U.S. alliances in Asia to counter the growing threat from the Chinese regime. And the first stop is Japan. The choice is no coincidence, as Japan is one of the U.S.'s most important allies in the region, for several reasons. Japan is the world's third largest economy. It also maintains a robust military. The country also sits on a critical location. It's part of a chain of islands that stretch all the way to Malaysia. The chain stands as a line of defense between Beijing and America's west coast, making it hard for Beijing to launch nuclear missile attacks against the U.S. Japan also has been a loyal partner to the U.S. for decades. It was even one of the first to send aid after the 9/11 World Trade Center attacks. On Tuesday, State Secretary Blinken and Defense Minister Lloyd Austin met with their Japanese counterparts. Meetings like this only happen when two countries need to come together to deal with challenges. In this case, they're focused on China. Beijing has been flexing its muscles in Japan. The regime recently moved to allow its coast guards to open fire at foreign vessels. That's if they're in Beijing's waters. But both Beijing and Japan claim the disputed Senkaku Islands as their own, and the regime has sent ships toward the disputed islands multiple times.
The security environment is becoming increasingly severe, so it is necessary for us to make the Japan-US alliance even stronger.
The U.S. is reaffirming that it would defend Japan if the disputed islands are brought under attack. The two powers also conducted joint military exercises around the islands. Blinken and Austin are now heading to South Korea. They're also set to meet in person with top Chinese diplomats for the first time this Thursday. Juliet Song, NTD News.
And up next, the UK Uber drivers are now set to get benefits that include the minimum wage after a decision from Britain's highest court. That and more on NTD News. Alcohol-free bars are opening across the United States. The surge is responding to a growing number of people experimenting with sober living. That's health and wellness trends like Dry January and Sober October gain traction. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
There may be something missing on St. Patrick's Day from a new kind of bar in the U.S. Booze. Aimed at the growing number of people exploring sobriety, alcohol-free bars are serving cocktails without the extra kick. At Sans Bar in Austin, customers are enjoying live music and drinks like Rosemary Ginger Mules and non-alcoholic IPAs.
A lot of people just want to drink less. A lot of people are just wanting to socialize without having the hangover or without having any alcohol or less alcohol.
Sober bars aren't a new phenomenon. They first appeared in the 19th century as part of the temperance movement. More recently, abstinence challenges like Dry January and a growing interest in health and wellness are credited for the trend. An explosion of new products is also fueling sales. Chicago's Ritual Zero Proof, which opened in 2019, makes no alcohol whiskey, gin, and tequila. Beverage behemoth Anheuser-Busch introduced alcohol-free Budweiser Zero last year. Douglas Waters opened Spirited Away in November, a New York store that sells non-alcoholic beer, wine, and spirits.
For a lot of people, soda and juice meet their needs if they're not drinking, but a lot of people also want something that feels a little bit more grown up.
Many of his customers are sober, and others are pregnant or have health issues. Some are training for marathons, while some just want to cut back. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Strawberries once again topped the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen fruits and vegetables list, tallying the highest levels of pesticide residue. Collard and mustard greens joined the 2021 list, sharing the number 3 spot with kale, while bell and hot peppers were also added to this year's list at number 10. The nonprofit group's list is based on samples from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration. The Environmental Working Group recommends people buy organic for the dirty dozen, but if they can't afford it or don't have access, to buy from its Clean 15 list. That list ranks the fruits and vegetables with the least amount of pesticide residue. Avocados top that list for 2021, followed by sweet corn and pineapple. We have an update on ride sharing in the UK. Drivers score a win over Uber after the two reach an agreement. Here are the details.
In a major victory for labor unions, Uber's more than 70,000 drivers in the UK will be guaranteed the minimum wage. The ride-hailing company's agreement to grant workers' rights comes after it lost a groundbreaking Supreme Court case led by two former Uber drivers. It kicked off in 2016 when an employment tribunal ruled that Uber's drivers were entitled to leave such as paid holidays. Uber then appealed the case all the way to Britain's top court, which ruled against it in February. On Tuesday, Uber said UK drivers would soon receive those added benefits and receive no less than the minimum wage, which stands at around $12 an hour for those aged 25 and older. But they're still entitled to fewer rights than those classified as employees, who are also guaranteed sick pay and parental leave. Drivers will also not receive minimum wage during the time they spend waiting for a passenger. That can take up as much as a third of the time Uber drivers spend behind the wheel with the app on, according to several U.S. studies. UK and U.S. labor activists have called on Uber to pay drivers from the moment they log onto the app and become available. But Uber says it can't control what drivers do during that time and whether they're actually working.
Millions of daffodils growing in the fields of an English county are waiting to be picked. But this year, there's a shortage of pickers.
This host of golden daffodils herald the start of spring. But for farmers, these open blooms signal loss. The flowers need to be picked while they are still in bud.
Every spring season we require a certain number of people to crop the cut flowers, the cut daffodils in the fields, and normally we'd use 150 people to do that job, but those people just are not available. So this year it's 25.
Most seasonal workers decided not to come, so this year pickers are at a premium. Usually Taylor's bulbs harvest about 25 million daffodil stems, but they say only 6 million or so will be cut this year. This farm is in Lincolnshire, one of the largest flower-producing areas in England. Another director of this family firm says the shortage of pickers is due to this year's exceptional circumstances.
Well, even if we had 1,000 pickers in this field, we wouldn't harvest all the flowers. It would be impossible. There are millions of flowers in this field. So there are always flowers that are left over, but we are picking less flowers than we normally would. And again, as I said, it was down to two things, partly Brexit, partly COVID.
There's been no government provision to allow migrant workers from the EU to enter UK to do this line of work. So far, it has only covered food crops, but not flowers.
The government has come up with a seasonal workers scheme, but unfortunately ornamental horticulture was not included in the pilot. We have been promised that it will be included in the future, but we don't know exactly when that's going to start. And so it's presenting us with an issue because we need to plan ahead.
With pandemic lockdown restrictions disrupting international travel, the usual Romanian pickers stayed away. Taylor's Bulbs are an established firm of over 100 years, supplying flower bulbs to the UK and Ireland.
And still to come, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson updates Britain's foreign policy and defense focus. It's the country's biggest reset since the Cold War. Paris's iconic zinc rooftops compete for UNESCO World Heritage status. A wine festival and French baguettes are also in the running for the recognition. That and more next on NTD News.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
The UK is heading to the Pacific to take on China's dominance.
I believe the United Kingdom can thrive in an ever more competitive world and fulfill our historic mission as a force for the good.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson announcing the biggest foreign policy and defence reset since the Cold War. The blueprint emphasises traditional allies in Europe and the United States, but it also signals a shift.
We will seek out friends and partners wherever they can be found, building a coalition for openness and innovation, and engaging more deeply in the Indo-Pacific.
Russia is still named as the top security threat, but China is now seen as the primary threat to economic security. Johnson acknowledges that China's human rights abuses, such as those in Xinjiang, cannot be ignored.
There is no question that China will pose a great challenge for an open society such as ours.
Johnson says the policy reset showcases post-Brexit Britain as an international outward-looking nation.
The British government says it is taking steps to provide further reassurance for women and girls. It's in response to the alleged kidnap and murder of 33-year-old Sarah Everard. NTD's Neil Woodrow reports.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson responds to the case of Sarah Everard. He's taking steps to ensure the streets are safe, with more focus on preventing sexual violence. The government is bringing in landmark legislation to toughen sentences and put more police on the streets. The government aims to roll out pilots of an approach named Project Vigilant around the country. It aims to have both uniformed and plainclothes officers attend areas around clubs and bars at night on city streets and increase the patrols around closing time. Speaking to a young man in Kingston, Surrey, he says he thinks the extra patrols are needed.
As a man, I can't really feel like what a woman feels at night, but I can understand it. But I feel like the government is doing the right thing, because sometimes, as having a sister as well, I feel uncomfortable when she's walking home at night.
His sister got catcalled at night in Kingston and feels some responsibility to look out for his older sister.
And I feel, as a younger brother, protecting my older sister, I feel like it's really wrong, and I feel really uncomfortable about it. Especially if she's with a boy, I feel like that's fine, but some girls on their own at night are actually really at risk at something happening to them.
Another man thinks that police alone is not the answer, but that more community support is needed.
Because just police is not going to change anything. You need probably more stuff. You need stuff like community focus groups, stuff like that. People that people can rely on and go to and say, okay, cool, you have my back if anything happens.
He went on to talk about the situation when there is no lockdown and large numbers of people are out and about.
There's girls on the streets, there's boys on the streets, and there's police on the streets. They're not going to catch everyone. There needs to be more of a justification to how to help these people. There needs to be more of solutions, if that makes sense.
The suspect in custody, a serving British police officer, is set to go on trial in October, accused of the kidnap and murder of Sarah Everard. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
Paris's iconic zinc rooftops are competing against other French rivals for UNESCO World Heritage status. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Paris's rooftop workers, who climb up buildings every day to maintain the city's zinc-covered roofs, are seeking UNESCO recognition for their skill. France's Minister of Culture will make her recommendation for the country's final candidate for the UNESCO list to the president in March.
I personally think it's an art, and it should be recognized as that. Since this is a profession that is disappearing, knowing that, as I told you, there's a lack of rooftop workers, be it in Paris or other regions. And it's true that it's quite pleasant to do something that's unique.
The Paris rooftops are competing against two rivals for the French bid: France's world-famous baguettes and the Jura region's Bieux du Bois wine festival. The rooftops date back to 1850. To reduce renovation costs and work more efficiently, Baron Georges Eugene Haussmann came up with the idea to plate the roofs with zinc instead of the heavier, more expensive slate. Today, around 75 to 80% of Paris's rooftops are covered with zinc.
I'm leaving a trace that will last around 50 years, because generally, Parisian rooftops last around 50 years. It's a pride to say that I've created something that will last for a time, for at least 50 years.
The UNESCO Intangible World Heritage title is meant to recognize oral traditions, performing arts, social practices, rituals, and methods of traditional craftsmanship. Belgium's brewing and beer culture has been recognized, as has the Neapolitan art of pizza twirling. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Israeli archaeologists recently discovered a trove of artifacts near the Dead Sea, including fragments of a biblical text from about 2,000 years ago. Take a look.
The Israel Antiquities Authority made a historic announcement on Tuesday. The text fragments, about 2,000 years old, bear biblical verse. It's a new piece of a compilation of ancient Jewish texts called the Dead Sea Scrolls, which give insight into Jewish society and religion before and after the time of Jesus.
For the first time in over 60 years, we have fragments of a biblical book that were discovered in an archaeological excavation.
The first Dead Sea Scrolls were first discovered in 1947. Until recently, new pieces of scrolls and parchment appeared on the black market, dug up by robbers. It spurred Israeli archaeologists to take action. Crews have rappelled off cliffs and used drones to map hundreds of cave-side hollows along an 18-kilometer strip. New findings also include an intact basket of 10,500 years old. They say it's likely the oldest in the world. Reporting by Lin, NTD News.
Here's a sight you don't see every day: a Russian man walking his pet geese. They're trained to wait at the corner, fly across crosswalks, and more.
Mashikov has 3 grown-up geese in his apartment. 2 females, Masha and Dasha, and a male, Yasha. Every day he walks his pets for several hours along the city streets, where residents can pet them and take photos.
It is a
meter room and eat almost the same food as Mashikov himself. Vegetables, fruits, bread, and even pasta. Mashikov taught his pets to respond to commands. The geese can sit down, hold, and fly on his command. 3 weeks ago, Masha laid more than 10 eggs, so she did not join the daily walk on Monday. Mashikov plans to keep up to 5 of her goslings and give the others to anyone who wants a pet.
I was thinking about which animals did not appear as pets. Hens are troublesome to hold. Ducks eat a lot. And the geese are beautiful and well behaved. They are the pets with charisma and temper.
Authorities in Thailand suspect that an organized crime ring is using cats to launder drug money. The cats' fates are also stirring debate from animal welfare groups.
Police in Thailand, conducting a raid on a suspected narcotics trafficking ring, have seized a house, a car, and 6 cats that they believe were being used for money laundering purposes. The kitties are all expensive pedigree breeds worth thousands of dollars. Specifically, 5 of them are of a breed called a Scottish Fold. The 6th cat is called a Bengal. Now they're being held by the police, who plan to sell them at auction. The house that was raided belonged to a woman who has been wanted by authorities for months and is said to have fled the property before police arrived. The plan to auction off the cats has also stirred some debate in Thailand. A number of animal welfare groups have asked that the cats be given to a shelter instead, which can help them find loving homes.
And up next, New Zealand takes home the world's oldest international sports competition trophy. That's after a win at the 36th America's Cup sailing competition. And uniquely colorful islands in South Korea are attracting visitors. Everything there is purple, from plant life to buildings and even locals' clothes. Catch a glimpse and more in just a minute. Team New Zealand won the 36th America's Cup for sailing on Wednesday. The win wrapped up a 7-3 victory over challenger Luna Rossa and successfully defended the Aldmug Trophy. The contest was held in the team's home waters off the coast of Auckland.
Hundreds of people lined the shores of Auckland to watch Team New Zealand win the 36th America's Cup on Wednesday, beating Luna Rossa 7-3 in the best-of-13 series with a dominant 46-second victory in race 10.
Fantastic, mate. Fantastic, eh? Team New Zealand, you've done the country proud. Congratulations.
Defender TNZ retained international sport's oldest trophy 4 years after beating Oracle Team USA 7-1 in Bermuda. It was their fourth America's Cup triumph after winning in 1995, 2000 and 2017. In contrast to Race 9's thrilling battle on Tuesday, the decider proved little more than a procession. TNZ threw down the gauntlet straight out of the start gate with a tack to the right, which proved a masterstroke as they claimed a slender lead and extended it to 9 seconds by the second mark.
Purple houses, purple bridges, and even purple rice. In South Korea, there is a cluster of islands where almost everything is purple. Tourists are eager to experience the magic.
Elderly women dressed in purple, tending lavender fields. Roofs colored in different shades of violet, and purple footbridges connecting the three islands. Restaurants even offer purple rice and serve food on purple plates.
It's amazing and looks like fairy tales and magic. As I'm looking, the grandmas are all wearing purple clothes. It's very dreamy.
The tranquil islands have a little over 100 residents and are now a popular tourist attraction. Since 2015, the county government has invested over $4 million to transform the islands. And it's been a success. The campaign has drawn in close to 500,000 visitors since it started in 2019.
Old people like us have lived a secluded life since all of the young people left the town. But after we planted lavender, I'm glad to see young people and my kids are coming. They're all like my grandchildren.
The theme was inspired by the native balloon flower. Some villagers have embraced it with delight.
In the morning, I dress up in purple from head to toe, even including my underwear and shoes, and that makes me happy.
Visitors are allowed free entry to the islands, as long as they wear purple.
500 drones took to the skies above Dublin as Ireland celebrated St. Patrick's Day. The ultra-lightweight purpose-built drones weigh 3/4 of a pound. They weaved into different shapes and changed colors as part of a show called the Orchestra of Light. The show was organized by Tourism Ireland, Dublin City Council, and the St. Patrick's Festival. The eye-catching drone choreography was designed by festival designer Aidan Grinnell. Around the world, St. Patrick's Day celebrations are quieter due to the pandemic. New York City's normally huge St. Patrick's Day parade had few onlookers in attendance, and was designed this year mostly for a virtual audience. 670 landmarks in over 60 countries across the world will also light up green to celebrate the influence of Irish culture. And that's all for now. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com